everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of Crypto City. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight, we actually have a surprise guest. I'm super excited to have him on. Many of you know him, and a lot of you have heard our guests reference him. So I'm very excited that we're going to have Metaclean Rupert on tonight. So we'll bring him out in just a few minutes, but that's going to be a really engaging conversation. I can't wait for him to share with you all of his journey and the things that he's working on right now. But first, so I kind of wanted to talk about something. Last week, I started to talk about something, and then we had our surprise DJ Marcus guest last week. So one of the things that people have asked me about, a lot of people think that because the show is called Crypto City, that I'm like a big investor in cryptocurrency, but that's actually not the case. First, I've mentioned a few times that actually the name refers to the cryptography of blockchain technology. So I'm sure that prompts the question, well, what actually is cryptography? So let's start with the word itself. So cryptography literally means the art of writing and solving codes. So cryptography is like a secret code language that helps keep information secure. It involves, different techniques for protecting communication and data and from unauthorized access. So, it's something that helps keep you secure. Now, we all know that blockchain is, a digital ledger or like a record-keeping system, and it's like a chain of blocks, and each block contains information. Well, what makes blockchain secure is the use of cryptography. So here's kind of how they relate. Cryptography in blockchain, it ensures the information inside each block is protected. It uses these complex math problems and algorithms to encode the data. It's kind of like imagine sending a letter in secret code when you were a kid, and only the intended person could crack the code to understand what it said. So cryptography does the same kind of thing in the data in a blockchain. So blockchain relies on decentralized network of computers, and cryptography helps in making sure that the transactions and information stored in the blocks are secure and trustworthy. It adds like a layer of confidence into the integrity of the data. So cryptography in blockchain is also used for digital signatures. I know you all have done things online where you've had to sign your name and it's encrypted. So it's that kind of technology where each participant in the blockchain network has a unique digital signature that proves their identity. It's like having like a digital fingerprint, and it helps ensure that the transactions are legitimate. And lastly, cryptography plays a role in the consensus mechanisms of the blockchain, which are kind of like the rules that determine how an agreement is reached on the state of the blockchain. So, cryptographic algorithms help in this process, and it ensures that the network can agree with the validity of the transactions. So in simple terms, after all that info, is, cryptography is the secret sauce that makes the information in a blockchain secure, trustworthy, and it can verify it. It's like the lock and key that keeps your digital information safe and sound. But back to as for investing in crypto. Well, a while back, I bought some crypto. It was the first time I was doing it, and I did my research, and I found ones that, I was interested in. And I purchased just a little bit to be part of this big community. And also I wanted to learn the process. Like, how can I talk to people about, buying and investing in crypto if I've never even done it? So I just did a little bit, and later on, I got a bonus from work, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll take some of this money and put it into my crypto and some of it into my 401k. And I called my financial advisor that's provided by my workplace. Trust me, I am not, over here rolling in money that I need an advisor by any means, but we have this great program at work, and this great guy, Nick, who, he's really good at explaining things in simple terms without getting frustrated over, our lack of knowledge, which is important when people are trying to learn how to do things. You don't want to feel belittled, and you also don't want to feel like you're bothering them with your questions. So anyway, he informed me that he could only handle the 401k piece because he's not allowed to buy crypto for clients. And he went on to kind of explain that, the government on the deregulation. And so he advised me if I was really interested in supplementing my crypto, perhaps consider an ETF to invest in. And of course, that prompted, what's an ETF and how is this different from buying stock for my 401k? So a stock represents ownership in a specific company. When you buy a stock, you become a shareholder in that company, which means that you own a piece of that company, even if it's just a little sliver. You're actually part of the ownership of that company. As a shareholder, you have the potential to make money in two main ways. If the company does well and its value increases, then the price of your stock goes up, allowing you to sell it for profit. And then some companies also pay shareholders a portion of their profits called dividends. So an ETF is very different. An ETF is a type of investment fund and it's exchange traded product. So ETFs are like baskets of different assets such as stocks, bonds, commodities bundled together into a single investment. So when you buy an ETF, you're essentially buying a share of this dividend portfolio, not direct ownership in the actual company. And ETFs are traded on stock exchanges just like individual stocks. But here's like a simple analogy. Think of stocks as like buying, think of it as like buying items for a fruit salad, like apples and bananas and stuff. And each apple is a different company's stock. With ETFs, it's like buying the whole fruit salad that contains a mixture of, various fruits representing a combination of different stocks and assets. So the fruit salad or the ETF can give you more diversification, which in fact reduces risk because it's not dependent on the performance of just this one company. So both stocks and ETFs can be part of your investment portfolio, but they serve different purposes. Stocks are for direct ownership and for the potential big returns or losses, as they may be, in individual companies, while ETFs offer diversification and a way to spread risk across multiple assets with a single investment. So your choice between the two depends on your investment goals and your risk tolerance. Some people are like, I have a big chunk of money over here. I just want to throw out and see what sticks and see if I make any money off of it. That's great. I'm never going to have money like that. So I'm always going to be on my end a little bit more conservative. So the ETF actually sounded like a great thing. Right now, actually, Fidelity is working with the government to allow a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is an investment vehicle that allows ordinary investors exposure to the price moves of Bitcoin in their regular brokerage accounts. This has no doubt been a factor in the current increase of crypto value over the last couple of the weeks that we've talked about. Last couple of weeks, my little portfolio is actually climbing. Very happy about this. Spot Bitcoin typically refers to the purchase or sale of actual Bitcoin for immediate delivery, meaning you're buying or selling the physical asset itself rather than a derivative or representative of it. When people talk about buying Bitcoin at the spot price, they're referring to acquiring Bitcoin at its current market value for immediate settlement. So why are ETFs that work with crypto allowed to be invested in, but not crypto itself? Well, the regulatory landscape basically for cryptocurrencies and their associated financial products vary from country to country. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are digital assets that exist on blockchain networks. They're decentralized, not controlled by the government or any financial institution. Some countries are not comfortable with that. Cryptocurrency ETFs, on the other hand, are traditional financial products that just track the price of cryptocurrencies. So they allow investors to gain exposure to the price movements without directly owning or holding any asset. So the regulatory environment for cryptocurrencies and related financial products has been evolving over time. Some countries have started to allow trading of cryptocurrency ETFs on a regular basis, while, maintaining stricter regulations in other places. So hopefully we're getting there. The talks are happening right now. There's talk about it on the news, talk about it online. So, hopefully this is something that's going to be coming along. So to wrap this up, there's a lot of info and it's definitely confusing at times. I am not a crypto investor expert at all. I'm a novice at best. I'm doing my best to learn every day a little bit more, but I'm definitely curious as to where this new potential for ETFs goes. Oh, and for the record, I decided to buy blockchain ETF because personally, I like to invest in the foundation of products and services where the growth potential is more diversified. Blockchain is running all these other things. So if one of them does bad, there's still plenty other to carry it through. So that's kind of how I look at it when I do investments. But remember, do your own research, consult with a financial advisor, or, go online and do the research and take some classes and understand the current status of cryptocurrency investments before you make decisions. And then check the regulations in your region, because if you're not living in the US, maybe in your country, you're allowed to do certain things, or maybe you're in a country where nothing is available to you right now. So definitely check out what's available in your area. So I know that was a lot of info. As always, we're going to be putting the video up on Discord and on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about that stuff, if you want to reach out to me, I can give you some, resources. Coursera and Udemy, which we've talked about before. There are programs on there that you can go on and take to learn more about investing in general and about cryptocurrency in general as well, to give yourself a little bit better base knowledge. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with somebody else who can probably be a better teacher for you on this stuff. So let's get to our guest tonight. Super excited to have him with us. So everyone, if you throw up a warm welcome for Metaclean Rupert.
Oh,
hey,
CityGirl, how are you?
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Grab a seat.
All right,
I'm so excited to have you here. Good job.
I'm excited to be here.
Good job.
I'm looking back like, who is that guy behind me? Because I know I look very different right now. Funny story is I had this Ready Play Me avatar that I hooked up to the wrong VR chat account. I didn't realize I had two, and I don't know how to merge the two. So I'll be speaking to maybe one or two of you to help me out with that in the future.
Of course. Well, we got you here, and that's what matters the most. I'll be honest. I met you once or twice over in Horizon when you were at an event that I was at. We really hadn't gotten a chance to talk, but I kept having guests come on the show that were like, oh, well, shout out to Metaclean Rupert because he helped me with XYZ, or, oh, who knows really good about this stuff? Metaclean Rupert. And I was like, all right, you know what? You know who I need on this show? Metaclean Rupert, because everybody's raving about you. So,
I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. I mean, so let's talk a little bit about, you coming into not the metaverse yet, but you coming into this, person that you are with all these incredible ideas. And when we were talking the other day, you told me, there's a difference between a creator and an artist. And you're like, I'm not an artist, I'm a creator. So explain that to the audience so they kind of get a feel for where you're coming from in your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. So I consider myself a creative and not necessarily an artist. And I think the analogy that I gave to CityGirl was like, I'm not going to cut off my air for the sake of being an artist, right? But I do like the way innovation works. I do like to push the limits, and I just like to see things operate sometimes. And do things that aren't necessarily traditional. And I think that's what sparks our creativity. And, we can be creative in any sense of the form, but, I feel like an artist really puts their soul into their creativity. And it's not that I just don't think I do it from an emotional standpoint as an artist would. I know you've probably heard the infamous phrase by Erykah Badu that I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my ish. Sometimes I don't get that sensitive about my creativity. There are things that I know artistically I hold closer to me, but for the most part, once I create and put it out there, I'm fine with whatever happens to it if the intent of why I put it out there is correct.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
You're out there and I do agree. Artists can be a lot more temperamental too, because like you said, it's coming from their heart. But, as a creator, I would imagine, especially, we're going to get into what you do in this environment, but in general, when you're creating something, if it's not going in the direction that you want it to go in, or if you collaborate with somebody else and they throw something at you that they're like, hey, it would be cool if we included this. You've got to be able to shift gears and compromise and, say, all right, you know what? My initial idea was great, but maybe this will enhance it and move along, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Because, I can pivot really easily. So I'm, for the most part, whenever I'm putting a strategy together, I have a vision of the outcome. And then, everything from B to Y in the middle is where I have room to play, right? So we have a starting point, we have an ending point, and I'm not really beholden to anything. And I'm not saying that artists necessarily are, but having worked with a lot of artists in a lot of different mediums, when things don't go the way they envision, it affects them emotionally. Where as a creator, I don't get as attached if things don't go the way that I envision it. It could be a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit and just trying to figure it out. But I'm okay with it not going exactly as planned, but still, getting to an end result that's really good.
So being an entrepreneur, I mean, before you came into here, you had a lot of cool things that you were involved in, a lot of startups, and we were talking about how, it kind of consumes you when you're doing things, and you kind of made choices to say, my family is important to me. So I'm doing all this stuff, but maybe I need to take a step back and focus on family. So tell us a little bit about that from a perspective, that some people who are in here are, working in VR and doing different things like every single day. And you kind of detach yourself from your people.
Yeah. So, but let me first start by saying, first of all, being an entrepreneur can be, I'm not going to say it is, but it can be extremely rewarding. But part of the journey in being an entrepreneur and some of the things that I'm not necessarily excited about is the way that it's portrayed on social media. Because, if you want to be an entrepreneur, or that maybe there's a different way for you to do business, or you want to get out of working for somebody else, which again isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes working for other people is good because it provides a little bit of stability, not control, but stability in the expectation that things are going to happen when they're supposed to happen. Where being an entrepreneur, if you're really out there in the streets, is you're almost moving as a hunter. You have to find, kill, eat, and repeat that process every single day. But one thing I didn't like about the way social media presents entrepreneurship is they miss a lot of the steps that really are important to succeeding or failing as an entrepreneur. The way it's presented sometimes on social media is, get an LLC. Once you get an LLC, you can apply for a business loan and you can get business credit, and then you've made it. But you've missed all the parts in the middle that can crush you. They really, really oversimplify the process. And again, it can be simple. I'm not saying that it's not, and I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's really important for me to, as I move through the space and I start to tell my story, to discuss a lot of the failures. And I think failing is the thing where we really learn about what we want to do. We talk and I said that balance between being an entrepreneur and family. I had the privilege of being part of a group handling their creative direction to get an artist signed with Aftermath Records. We got a single on the 8 Mile soundtrack. We're in the club video. When 50 Cent came out, we were in the studio at the same time as Rakim performing. So these kids who had no prior experience dealing with musicians or dealing with the music business got thrown into an environment where we're working with the one of the best producers in the whole world. It's a very surreal moment to go from recording in the basement to recording in the same studio that Eminem recorded his album in. That's Snoop recorded his album in. And I remember walking down the hallways of Dre's studio and just seeing the endless gold and platinum plaques of the people that created masterpieces in this studio. But once money became involved, there were a lot of zeros attached to that number, and the relationship that we had with our artists, who we had been doing all of this stuff for free, changed once the money became involved. People got into her ear, and all of a sudden we didn't have value to her, and she sent us home. And I realized, after spending countless hours in studios, being away from my family, driving from Brooklyn to Queens to pick her up to take her to the studio, 5-6 times a week, sometimes leaving the house at 11 o'clock, getting home at 5 o'clock in the morning. and then having to go to work afterwards, and then just seeing how quickly it all crumbled, I realized that my passion for that wasn't worth me sacrificing the time with my young family. I just had a son. My son was about 2 years old at the time, and I missed some of that stuff with having to do that. I was in LA for maybe 3-4 weeks. Dre set us up with an apartment out there, so we were in LA for some time, and if I'm away from my family, I'm missing the time raising my kids, being with my wife. And I just realized when that happened, I wasn't that serious about it. But you have to understand that if you want to cultivate something, if you want something to grow and expand, you have to give it life. You have to spend time with it. And where you spend that time is entirely up to you. For me, I feel like it's better to do it in the beginning and get it to a point where it can kind of self-manage itself. That'll free a little bit of time for you to do other things. Of course, now AI, hey Metaday, AI, with the inclusion of AI right now, it can help you manage that time. But at some point, if you want it to succeed, you have to be there with it and to nurture it, and you just have to decide where you're going to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that's finding the balance there. I mean, where are your priorities? And, it's okay to, have a great idea, an entrepreneurial idea that you're going to run with. And then while you're working on it, realize it needs to pause for a little bit. It's okay to do that. Yeah. You can come back to it. And sometimes you take a pause and you realize maybe you should have been going in a different direction. The universe sends you what you need at the time. So if you're, if you open yourself up to opportunities that are there, that's great. But when things happen in our personal lives, we really need to sometimes take inventory and say, okay, you know what, right now, this needs to be the priority and everything else just has to hold. And, it's not all about the money at the end of the day. It's a piece of it, but it's definitely not all of it. So, but you actually have a...
Yeah, I mean, you just have you got to realize what your idea of success is, right? And I think too many of us get caught up in looking at other people's journeys and looking at their experience and saying that is what success looks like. But that's not the same for everybody. Success is really an individual journey. Like for me, I'm not motivated by money at all. And it's not that I'm, a millionaire and I live this lavish lifestyle, but I'm comfortable. I don't have to want for anything. I have everything I need. Of course, I have wants, but I have everything I need. And I think COVID showed us that we don't need a lot to survive, right? And as traumatic as that experience was, I'm happy that I went through it because I changed my lifestyle drastically after COVID. I realized I didn't have to go out as much. I didn't need the things I was spending money on. And when I really stopped and got to a point where I had to stay inside and not spend any money, it made me realize, why did I need all that stuff? But, you have to kind of understand your personal idea of what success looks like to you without looking at somebody's journey and trying to mimic it. Because really part of the failures that entrepreneurs and just in life in general come from not achieving somebody else's standard. And I think if you're comfortable with the standard that you set for yourself, man, life is going to be so much more peaceful, and it allows you the room to operate and grow.
Absolutely. Competing with yourself, no one else. And this is your I love this. This is your motto. This is something that you live by with everything that you do. You told me that you say it all the time, but I went back and I looked at your Instagram and you do say it all the time. And I love that because it means that you actually, you believe in this doctrine so much that you carry it with you. So, tell us, where did this come from?
Yeah, so in branding yourself, it's important to have a tagline, right, or something that makes you recognizable. And when I sit with creators who have an idea about a world or who might be stuck with an idea, I have to remind them, like, whatever you build is irrelevant, right? Because you can build something great tomorrow and something that gets absolutely no eyes tomorrow, but the one constant in that relationship is always going to be you. So. In branding and thinking about my movement to be in the space, I kind of just got that phrase from the things that I was doing. obviously being in the metaverse is an extremely creative space. I think it's really important to take care of people, which is where the love comes into it. Everything we see draws inspiration to us. I tell you, for those of you who are in Horizon Worlds, I can't look at anything without seeing primitive shapes right now. So when I walk down the street and I'll see a building, I'll see architecture, and I'll be like, yeah, cube, triangle, square, sphere. Like I see everything in primitive shapes right now, right? So I'm inspired by my environment, but I'm also inspired by people. Also, because there are so many amazing people on this platform, whether they're creating or scripting or just being here, those conversations have inspired me so much to want to do more and want to be better and make sure that I'm taking care of people and not moving in a way that's harmful, that's going to disrupt progress, right? And adding value, I think, is probably the thing I'm probably best known for, because if I really want to leave a relationship or a conversation with having a slight impact, I don't have to dominate a conversation, or I don't have to give you all the advice. But if I can give you one thing to think about that broadens your horizons, or just adds a little bit of value to your day, I think that if all of us adopted some more of those techniques, I'm not saying that, we have to live by my motto, but, it's a toxic world we live in. And I think we spend a lot of time thinking about our own individual journey without thinking about the person next to us and how inspiring them or motivating them can inspire the masses. Like, I'm not a huge fan of education in a formal sense, but I'm a huge fan of learning. And you can learn from everything and everyone that you encounter. I don't know if you always need a formal education. I want my doctor to have a degree. I don't know if I need my plumber to have one. but I do know that learning can come in any form, right? So you can learn a lot from the mistakes you make. I learned a lot from the mistakes because I make a lot of them. So,
Yes.
I'm glad my wife isn't here on the couch, because she shared a lot of those mistakes. But I've won a little bit, but I failed a lot, and I've learned the things I don't want to do by making some of those big mistakes. And I just feel like if I can prevent somebody from making that same mistake, or at least not being as impactful or detrimental to their progress, then we can all win. Yeah. So create, love, inspire, add value all day.
All right. So let's talk now about your VR immersion coming into, the metaverse and stuff. So right now you're mostly in Horizon Worlds for your work. You've done stuff in VR chat as well and stuff.
I have, yeah.
When you first came into VR, was Horizon your first experience, or did you find your way into Horizon?
No, it was Horizon was actually my second experience. So I started in December of 2021, and for us back then, a lot of us that came in at that time, it was all about venues. So venues is a Horizon platform where it was basically a big room that allowed you to go and see concerts and shows in video. So, but there's really only one room to meet. So we'd all meet in this room and then decide what concert to see. But really, most of us just ended up hanging out there and talking. And I remember, just in hearing conversations, everybody kept saying, Horizon Worlds, Horizon Worlds, Horizon Worlds. I'm like, okay, but what is Horizon Worlds? This is my first time in VR. I didn't know anything from anything. Saw that it was an app on the headset and downloaded it. My first entry point was Hardy World. And I go into Hardy World, and I'm blown away. At the time, he had put logos for companies there, and I started thinking, I was like, oh, are all these companies in VR? And if they are, how did I miss all of this? Like, I feel like everything happened right under my nose and I missed everything. Now, come to find out that those were just self-created. Those companies weren't actually in here, but it just kind of introduced me to all of the avatars that I see here now outside of this one room that we all, engaged in. Then I realized that you can build there. And as a creative and a serial entrepreneur, who takes it seriously sometimes and not seriously other times, I had a brand, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to come in here. I'm super creative. I can build and do this. The process was tedious for me. I didn't gravitate and catch onto it. And when I did, I'm a little OCD, so it took me forever to finish builds. And I just didn't want to be isolated that much. I enjoyed the people part of the process so much more. But I realized I was a little older than most of the avatars, and I come in some real world experience in a few different industries. I've been in fashion, I've been in music, I'm a photographer, I've been a graphic artist, I've been able to work for and shoot for magazines in the city based around hip hop. So I come with some experiences, plus with some corporate experience, where I realize that I've made money as a creative and I can really help people figure out how to make money in here with their creativity. Because no one really knew at the time, which is kind of how I got my name Metaclean. No one really knew how to make money in here. Very, very small percentage. It wasn't all about money. It's really about the social connections, but my understanding of what this could be instantaneously led me to some things that, and I feel like I was maybe able to help creators in a different way that didn't involve building worlds or script in that nature. Yeah.
So you call yourself a Metaverse strategist. And I know that you've worked with a lot of people in here where you've actually, sat down with them, talked about what their goals are and everything. And so Metaclean Presents has basically showcased some of these people to help get their story out there. You took me to see this world that you've created, where you do your show. And and so this was a really cool world for anybody who hasn't been there before. Maybe go check it out. You've had four seasons that you've already had on there?
4 seasons, 41 shows. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And so a lot of the people who I saw on the wall there that had been featured on your show are part of our community that we see all the time now. But you said some of these people were on there before they were who they are now. So it's kind of a platform for people to come and share their goals and stories. So how do you work with them to help them achieve their goals?
Yeah. So for one, I think it's a few things, right? And it's really organic. So my goal when I invite people on the show is never because they're popular or they're super creative. It always starts with the person first and what type of impact they're having in the community. So I will say I'm just the way I am. I can't surround myself with people who cause harm in the community. So if I know of something, and I know a lot that happens in this space because I immerse myself with creators and people. So I know a lot of the relationships outside of the spotlight. So I know how people present themselves, but I really know how people are at the same time. And that's a skill that I've had to develop, long before VR came into play, as I've worked as a strategist and a recruiter and other, other positions IRL where it costs companies money. So I have to understand what my competition is doing outside of how they present themselves, right? So the understanding of people or relationships, I'm not even going to say people, the understanding of the dynamic of a relationship is something I take really, really seriously. But I can see a lot of the nuances without people knowing that I know exactly what their intent is. It might be because I'm a New Yorker and I can smell the BS from a mile away sometimes too. So there's that helps a little bit as a little bit of a defense mechanism. But for me, when I would always invite a guest to the show, it'll sometimes be with just a random conversation. Like I remember I had a guest that came to my show one time, and after the show we do like just hang around and talk. And in the 15-minute conversation, was just seemed so intriguing to me. I was like, man, I would really like you to come and talk on the show. And it really wasn't anything in particular. It's just a feeling sometimes. Like I move a lot on my instincts, and I trust my instincts a lot. If I feel like something is good for the space or good for me, I can move on it. And if something about it just doesn't feel right, then I just can't proceed forward, because I don't want to fight myself in the creative process. I have enough issues dealing with myself. I don't want to fight myself with the creative process. Right. but a lot of the guests that have been on my show, a lot of them were relatively unknown. I've watched their journeys, and I've watched the things they've been doing, and whether or not they've had success has been completely irrelevant. But I realized that the further the show progressed and the more attention it got, and it's funny because Horizon Worlds is weird because they focus a lot in Horizon Worlds on likes and visits, right? And the way the top creator is considered there is how many likes does the world have, and I think that's a small part of what Horizon Worlds has to offer. Because I really feel like Metatalks Live, and again, I'm not saying this from an ego standpoint, but I really feel like that's really been like one of the most impactful shows in Horizon Worlds, and it has 134 likes. And I don't care that it has 134 likes. I know the impact that it's made in people's lives, whether it be one person or 50 people or 1,000 people, who knows? But the show has been impactful, and to me, that means so much more to me than the monetary value of likes or necessarily visits. Listen, I only had 24 seats, and a lot of times it was the same people over and over and over again. So my visits are only going to so much because I have a built-in audience from a show that happened once or twice a week. But the impact of the show and the purpose and why I did it is so much more impactful. And it's a world, as we discussed, that started out of frustration, which is why it's good to learn from your lessons, right? Like the bad things that happen to you that you think are bad are really just blessings in disguise. I got to tell you, don't get hung up on the negativity, because look for the opportunity in everything. I left a pretty toxic situation from a really significant build that I had the privilege of putting some creators together, and I left that space feeling undeserving or not worthy to be a builder on that platform. And that bothered me because I don't have those feelings a lot, but the environment became so toxic, and I really questioned myself in one of those few moments whether or not I wanted to be here. So Metatalks Live came out of frustration. I was like, you know what? I'm going to build this world that no one's ever seen before. That's why it's like a hexagon and neon lights and very, very different than anything that anybody had seen at the space. But man, it turned into something really transformative that help people heal and tell their story, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we have a lot of creatives in all the different metaverse platforms, whether they're world builders or content creators, and there are days when you do something, you create something, and you just feeling it and the vibes are good. And then there's other days where either it's you don't feel good about what you created, or the audience or the people who are experiencing your world, they're not feeling it, so it throws you off a little bit. But everything in life is a learning experience, and sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's negative. But for any, you said earlier, sometimes you've got failures. They help you grow because you know what not to do moving forward. The things that work well, take them and expand on them. And you've definitely,
can I touch on that?
Yeah,
can I touch on that for a minute? Because I think that's important, especially being in a room full of creators. So this is where I talk about like understanding what success means to you, because so many creators, especially now with the talk of monetization, being able to make money in here, I just really believe that so many creators are doing it for the wrong reason. They're duplicating things that they see that are successful without having a passion or a want to do that, right? And if you don't want to do it, and if you don't want to be there, and that's with anything, but especially in this space for right now, it's going to make your existence really miserable. Because if you don't get the result that you've seen somebody else get from creating that thing, you're going to feel that sense of unworthiness, and you're going to learn to hate the space that you're in. And when you move forward with a place where it doesn't come from a creative space, it comes from a space of animosity, I don't care how much you try to hide it, it is always going to come out in that build. Like, it's funny. I'll give you a little story. So I like to cook, right? I'm not a chef, but I like to put some stuff in the bowl and throw some stuff together. And my children actually said this. They said when they were younger, why does your food taste so much different than mommy's food? And I sat there straight face, and I was like, because mommy hates to cook. They just looked at me like they didn't understand. Like, why would that matter? Like, when I cook, I like to cook out of love. Like, I'll put it in, I'll plate the plate a certain way, and drizzle the gravy a certain way, and present the food. But my wife is just like being in a prison: slop, potatoes, rice, meat, eat. Yeah,
Hopefully she's not
yeah, wash
listening
your
to you
dishes.
right now because she's over
No,
there
no,
going, "Oh, you think I feed you like a prisoner?" Huh?
no. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, so she's fast asleep. So I get the privilege to talk in peace a little bit. But the work that you put forth in anything you do,
Mhm.
it translates in your feelings
It sure
translate
does.
through your work.
Mm.
You can tell when somebody loves to do something, and you can tell when
Mhm.
somebody doesn't want to be involved. And if
Mhm.
that's how you're presenting your work or your artistry, it's going to show in the end result. People aren't going to feel it, right? Like I think I've only been upset with one building here that made me question my purpose in building. Like one of my very first builds was a place called the Showcase Lounge, which I presented for a way. It was probably one of the first stages in here that presented people an opportunity to get up there and perform. And that world went absolutely nowhere. And that hurt me a little bit because I put
Mhm.
the artistry and the creativity into that world, and it wasn't received. But I learned from that space and the understanding of how to market in here. You have to be present in your worlds. You've got to be engaged with your worlds. You can't just set it and forget it, like Ron Popeil says
Mhm.
with this device. Like you have to be in your world. You have to manage your world. You have to promote your world. And it made me realize that conducting business in here isn't different than in real life. It's and I'll say physical and virtual. I don't like using the term in real life because we're all real people. But conducting business in here isn't any different than the physical world. All the principles still apply, and you have to adopt them in this very non-traditional space if you want to succeed at that particular part of the business.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I agree. We have, like you said, a lot of creatives in here, and
Yeah,
the world builders, I think you feel it the most because what they create, people walk in and it's like, oh my God, I love this. It's beautiful.
yeah,
Like the stuff that Kip has been creating, the complex and stuff, we all were like racing to get in there and get our places. DJ Marcus created this beautiful
right.
radio station world. Everybody's doing things, and Cybershay's created things in Horizon that we've gone over and seen the beautiful apartment complex. You can tell when they
Yeah,
love what they're doing. You can tell when
yeah,
there's love in it. But you're also part of this project called The Block with Cybershay, who was on a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
and Yo Afro, who's going to be on next week. So we'll touch on that real quick before we talk about your services. Tell us about The Block.
Yeah, so we came to an understanding. So the block started off initially with Mr. Waterloon, who is an amazing director who's been able to put forth the Horizon World image on video, unlike I've ever seen before. It's very, very engaging with the content he creates. He's done a few movies in Horizon Worlds that still a lot of people haven't seen, which is a travesty. But he's also gotten into the music video realm now, and he's been able to present that in a really, really, really interesting way. And Yo Afro and myself, and now of course bringing on Cybershay and another creator, Cosmic High. So it started off in the understanding that there was something missing with the relationship of artists in the space, right? Part of what I do when I either collaborate or offer a strategy or suggestions is I have to have a win for everybody involved in the project. If it only benefits a small segment or one person, for me, that's not a win. And most times I just can't immerse myself in that experience. So what we saw was with artists who went to people's worlds and performed, a lot of them weren't getting anything from it, right? They got exposure, which was good, but their creativity has to come with a monetary value, because for some of them that's their bread and butter. They worked years and years on their artistry and their craft, and it just felt like artists weren't being utilized correctly or being used for their talent in order for people to drive business to the world. So and I was guilty of that. If I invited somebody to come and perform, it's with the intent of I want them on my stage to attract people to my world, for my world to become more popular, which benefits me, which benefits the audience, but may not always benefit the artist, I feel like, the way it should benefit them. Yes, it might provide them some exposure, but that's not enough. We just felt like that wasn't enough for an artist. So we said we have to figure out a way or a formula where we can get artists paid for the time that they spend in people's world. So we said, all right, well, first it has to start with exposure that benefits the artist and not just the person they're performing for. So Mr. Waterloon came up with an idea of, you know what, let's put the music on an asset that we can put in multiple worlds. And, you know, it's a concept that I've had for a little while. I gave a few people the strategy, but he actually created a product where he put it in an album. You push a button, the album comes out. You hit the play button, it plays a song. So we said we can give this away. We can do this for free for artists and distribute it for free to whoever wants it in the metaverse, right? So now if somebody wants to hear a particular song, they can come pick up the asset. We'll give them a free copy. They can take it back to the worlds and they can play it in their worlds.
Nice.
But it also gave us a way to track analytics, because now we know how many people are interested, how many people came to pick up that asset. Right, because we can see who was in the world, who picked up the asset. We may not know who's playing it or who utilizes it, but we can know who picked it up. Which for us, we just translate that as a purchase. All right, so we can now know, like, we don't have to speculate. Okay, is there a demand for this artist? We know over 100 people came to get this asset. We implemented a tracking system, very traditional. And, you know, I don't like to reinvent the wheel at all. I like to use very traditional things in a non-traditional space. So for us, it was what's one way that musicians measure the success on the outside world? Well, going gold or platinum. So it's like, cool, well, let's adopt that system in here. If we can distribute 50 items in the space, for us, that's considered going gold in the metaverse. If we can distribute 100 of those singles, for us, that's considered going platinum. If we can distribute 1,000, for us, that's considered going diamond, right? But now we've got a way to track analytics, but we've also got something for an artist to achieve and also something for the artist to rest on now, because now I can present an artist and say, hey, we've got platinum selling artist Yo Afro making an appearance today. Right. I can shop that. I can market that to some of my real life contacts in the physical world. I can't necessarily market an artist based on their exposure or what people think about them without having any analytics, especially in Horizon Worlds when you can only get 32 people in the world. But now I can say, hey, we distribute 260 of these assets to this many people. And even though it might not sound a lot, at least that's something to gauge in the space, and I can talk about that now when I speak to some of my network on the outside as far as gaining interest. So with the block, though, it's really an organization or collaboration of talent. Yes, we're an organization, but we work very loosely within our organization. When we're together under a block project, we are locked in 100%. But we're also free to do and move as we wish throughout the space in order to elevate the brand and some of the things that we're doing on an individual level. And just the dichotomy of our relationship, we all do completely different things, so we don't trample on each other's toes, but we allow ourselves the freedom to do the things that we're really, really good at. And it's worked really, really, really well for us. It has. But, you know, we can just do an asset, or we can do a complete build out. We can build worlds. We can do music videos. We can do assets. We can get you on stages. We can get you tapped in with our network. So it could be something really minor you need from us. Yeah, we can do everything. You know, the asset where we don't make money on an artist performing their music. So we make money on actually the services that we provide in order to get to that point. The only thing we do for free for the artist is the asset, which is the most important part, because we know then how serious you are about your own project. If we make you an asset and you don't pick it up yourself, I don't know if you're that serious, because you're not promoting your own brand, right? We don't offer promotions in the normal sense of the word. We offer limited marketing by exposure, and we don't offer management services. We leave that to other people in the metaverse to do. But we can put an entire package together to make you ready to be seen and get your name out there.
Love it. This is great. And again, we're going to have Yo Afro on next week, so we'll hear her side of it as the actual artist receiving these services. So speaking of your services, from your website, I got the next slide, which actually has the 4 services that you're readily offering out to the metaverse. So you're kind of doing a little bit of everything, helping people learn how to, monetize in the metaverse, but also having them just have good experiences and events. So these services that you show here, people can come to you and ask you for help with their project, or give you, an idea and say, hey, this is what what I want to do. How do I achieve it? And you'll give them guidance. They can hire you to help them strategize. Like, what's the process typically like?
Yeah. So most times it starts with somebody hitting me in my DM like, hey, can you help me do this? And, I did that for free, and I still do it a lot for free. I don't think I need to charge for every minute and second of my time, as I've seen some other strategists do. Obviously, if it takes me outside of my normal work routine, and it becomes immersive, then yeah, I feel like I should get compensated for the time it takes me to do that and plan. But for the most part, most people know that they can hit me up, ask me a question, and I'll hopefully give them some good advice or an assist. But I've spent an inordinate amount of time developing a network of really amazing people in here. I take my relationships seriously, even if other people don't. But usually, if I consider you part of my network, I'm going to take that relationship really, really seriously. But the way I cultivate my network, though, doesn't mean that I have to be involved in everything. It could be something as simple as, hey, if I know somebody who needs a particular service, and because I know quite a few people in the space, there it goes. You said it was going to happen, and it happened.
It's okay.
Yep,
You're one of us.
It was going to happen. It happened. But exactly. But I know a decent amount of people in this space, but not just people. I know like good people, so I can connect people with what they need in the space, and I don't have to be involved, right? So that's my way of kind of adding value to the space. But if you need something full service, if you need an idea, if you're a creator who has had success but are kind of stuck on what they kind of should be, what the direction that they should be going into, I spend the time analyzing the trends. I can see from a distance what's coming next, by conversations, by chatter, by paying attention to newsreels, by just traveling throughout the space. I can see usually a couple of steps ahead about the things that are going to get popular, and I may even reach out to a creator who I know is doing those things and say, hey man, I just want to let you know, I'm seeing this kind of becoming a thing. It might be a good idea to start thinking about it, right? Never going to tell a creator what to build, how to build it. That's not my place. Everybody should create in their own vision. So I'll never tell them how to create, because for them as an artist, that's not my place to do that. But if they ask me for an honest critique, or how can I make the experience better, then yes, I can give you an honest critique based on where they're at, not based on where I'm at. So I'm always going to meet people where they're at. I don't expect a creator who has been here one day to build as like I can build, and I don't expect someone like me who's been in here limitedly building to build like a Matt Lowe, right? We are all three different levels of creativity, but I can talk to each level of creativity as I've had to do that in my physical world, as kind of being an intermediary at times between construction and IT and field level, and having to engage with people in where they're at the time. So I'll say, man, the metaverse, the one thing that I love about the metaverse, where I feel like I've thrived, and I feel like many people thrive, is that everything that we've been able to do in our physical worlds has been able, we can merge all of those talents here in one space. And I haven't ever been on a platform where I've been able to use my artistry, my creativity, my business acumen, my pain, my struggle, my successes, and really use it all in one place. And it has been, again, transformative is the way that I always like to explain it. Yeah. So Metaclean Presents is the company. I started off as an LLC. I'm now an S Corp, as I'm growing and branding. So looking forward to 2024 and some of the things that I've able to been achieved. Hopefully I can share that and create some opportunities for some people in here, and really kind of showcase some of the work that I've been doing behind the scenes. Yeah. Exciting.
So that's, pretty much speaking soup to nuts. I mean, you do pretty much everything. So anybody out there who may need some of these services, or somebody who has an idea out there who's like, I think I might want to do this and bring it into the metaverse, and how can I bring my physical world skills into here and integrate them. Metaclean Rupert, there's your guy to talk to, and maybe he can give you some direction to help you grow your concepts. So I want to ask you, just on a side note, how, or I should say, what is the biggest impact in your physical world from being in VR?
So in what sense? In
a positive sense, something that's happened in here that's actually helped you in the real world.
Wow. So, all right. Well, I guess it's weird because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm actually an introvert. But I call myself an introvert with extrovert tendencies. So, one of the things that I think is impactful in this space, in what really helps creators develop the sense of who they are, is working with purpose, or having a passion or something. Sometimes that purpose comes from trauma. One of the things MetaTalks Live was able to do was we got to, we saw what people did, what the end result was of the product they released, but we actually found out why they did it. And so much trauma came out from that stage that made you understand why people did and do the things they do. So for me, that traumatic event, and not saying that it's by any sense of the means everyone's trauma, but these are things that have impacted my life. Like my parents separated at a very young age, and in that separation, I lived with one parent and then ended up living with another parent. So for me, that sense of abandonment played a significant role in my childhood. It's probably still something I deal with today, even all these years later, because in my eyes, it's just like, well, I feel like I was left by one parent and then given away by another one. And as an adult, I can see the dynamic of how those things play out. Right, as a 7-year-old child, I don't see it that way. I don't understand what those dynamics and those relationship things are. So I've always innately been a little untrusting of people, which has left me really guarded. And I've only ever let people in so much into my life. And I've always seen in relationships that fail, whether it be a friendship or a love affair or whatever, it's like I know the point where it's failing, because there comes a point where I feel like somebody's getting too close into me, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going to be abandoned again, right? So I've always moved in that capacity, but I've also dealt with that a lot too. That feeling of invisibility, where sometimes you want to be seen for something that you're doing, and you're just invisible. No one cares, right? Because of that, I acted out in a certain way, and for me, that acting out happened on the dance floor. Like I'm an extremely humble person, but when it came into dancing, probably starting from the age of like 20 years old to about 27, if I met you out on the dance floor, if you wanted it, you were going to get it. I didn't look for problems, but I caused problems on the dance floor for a lot of people. I danced 7-8 times a week, sometimes 2 times on a Wednesday, 2 times on a Saturday, every single night. When I left New York and went to Virginia, my nickname was Boogie, because of the way and the impact I had on the dance floor. Like I took it seriously without ever taking it seriously. And I've done a couple of music videos out there, but I'm terrible at choreography. I'm a freestyle dancer, so I was a terrible dancer for music videos, but I was always a good background player if they wanted to spotlight somebody for a couple of seconds. But that takes a lot of extroverted tendencies to do that, right? That's not things an introvert does. But, within that, I also realized that, being humorous, being the center of attention, being the life of a party were ways that I was masking things that I wasn't receiving, that need to be seen, that needs to be accepted, that need not to be abandoned or being left. So in this space, one one thing I really thought about very early on is, man, this can be a really, really great space for somebody who's coming in here on a social level. But for an introvert, it could be detrimental because if they experience those same things in the headset, where this sometimes may be their last resort for connectivity with people, it could be a final step to cause them to make a decision that I don't ever want to be a part of somebody making a decision where they don't have a choice to come back, right? Because it's really easy, and it still bothers me sometimes when you're talking to somebody and they go into a party right in front of you and you know they're having another conversation. That bothers me a little bit. That, first of all, it's rude as hell because you know when they're doing it, and it's different if just like, you're talking about something confidential. But, if you're in a group of people and you just go into party mode in front of people, that's to me, it's a little disrespectful, but it also makes somebody feel like the time you're spending with them is not worthy, and it takes them back to that feeling of being undervalued or feeling insignificant. So it was always a point of reference to me, especially in my first year when I was really in my growing stage, to make sure I recognized everybody in the room. And it's difficult now because there's so many people in VR, but back, in that first year, there weren't a lot of people. So I didn't care where I was. I didn't care what I was doing. If somebody new came into the room, I just took a moment and just greeted them. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Add them as a friend and grew my network, right? I owe them that much, right? That person, especially if it's my world, right? If I'm in a world that I created and somebody takes the time to come and see me, then absolutely I'm going to stop and take the time to at least say hello if I can engage with them from being in a conversation. But really that became my purpose as a way to kind of deal with my own healing that I'm on a constant journey to do. And again, I still get these feelings of anxiety and not being appreciated in a space. I can tell when I walk into a room, and everybody innately can tell when you walk into a room and you don't feel like you should be there. And I can pick up on that stuff. I can pick up on those energies really, really easily. Listen, I don't move through the space in a toxic fashion, but people are going to have their feelings for whatever reason they have their feelings for, right? We can call it hate, we can call it confidence, we can call it whatever you want to call it, but we can all walk into a room and know when the energy is not right or your presence isn't wanted. And I'm not going to grace those spaces. Oh, you did it too. See, I don't feel so bad now. but really that IRL feeling has really kind of helped me, or it did help me navigate this space in how I wanted to present myself and the things I'm cognizant about and recognize that happen in here on a frequent basis. Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to always be kind, because you just never know what everyone else is going through. And you saying walking into a room having abandonment issues, nobody knows that. They should just be kind to you for whatever, just because you're there. And I agree with you on the one thing you said. If I'm not feeling the energy in a room, leave the space. Like there's plenty of times where I come in and it's like, okay.
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? The one thing I definitely like to leave everybody away with, like if you're feeling like that, or you're in or the center of many of these toxic relationships, like you can curate your own space. Right. We have to get to the position and understand that we have the control, like every individual, and I'm really, really passionate about this. Every individual has the power to control every part of their existence. Then you have the ability to create them. Like you can make absolutely anything you want to make in this space and be around anybody you want to be with 100% of the time. You don't like somebody's not adding value to you, or they're continually doing things that make you feel not worthy, then that block button needs to be utilized to bring you peace. If you don't like being in the world because you don't like the aesthetics of the world, then you know what? You have 100% capability of creating your own or paying somebody to do it for you in the vision that you want to see it. And you can control that. It frustrates me to no end. And frustration, not out of anger, but just out of people not seeing what the opportunities can be. When people leave the platform and say, I'm leaving Horizon Worlds, it's toxic, I can't stand it there. Then what are you doing with your time there where you've put yourself in a corner that your only option now is to leave instead of finding the right people for you, right? You're living probably in a way, you're living a life that you shouldn't be living because it doesn't bring you joy, which means you're probably doing things for other people that don't bring you peace. You're not going to find peace in what anybody else has to offer you. You got to find that internally and surround yourself with people who want you in the room. Yeah, 100%. Curate your own spaces, man. Curate your own space. It's so important to bring peace.
Well, I'm grateful that we had this chance to talk to you and get to see, your vision, how you've brought things and the positivity that you're spreading throughout the community right now. I mean, thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
Here's your contact information. So again, if anybody is interested in, doing some work with Metaclean or, just talking to Metaclean to do some strategizing and see what's next for you, you can check out his website or his Instagram. We love hearing everything that you had to say. Your journey's been great, and I can't wait to see what you have coming up in the future. And I will say I've been spending more time crossing over between the different Metaverse platforms, including Horizon. There's some great people over there. It's been good, so hopefully there'll be some overlap and more, switching back and forth for different events. So it'd be great.
I hope so.
And next week, we're going to have Yo Afro on, so we'll be hearing more about you, but from her aspect.
Yo! That's my girl. I love Yo Afro.
That will be a great episode, too. It's going to be fun. And, I love the fact that, between you and Cybershay and Yo Afro and, all these other people all collaborating on that project. And I also know you've collaborated with some other people that we've had on here. So I love the community, building the community within itself. It's great. So thank you all for coming here tonight to see Metaclean and hear his story. Appreciate you all joining us on Monday night. And, we'll keep doing this, and we will see you all next Monday, 9 p.m. here in VRC. Thank you, Metaclean.
And create, love, inspire, and add value, man. That's the only way. I appreciate you.
There's your homework. Run with it.
A lot of my people in here. What's up, y'all? A lot of people I haven't seen in